Thank you very much, and thank you all of you for being here. What a speech from the New Zealand Prime Minister. Well, we have with us here Angus Taylor, the Australian Business and Energy Minister, Kwasi Kwarteng's counterpart, and also the Australian High Commissioner, George Brandis. So that trade deal was done in 365 days, a record, super-duper, modern, state-of-the-art, comprehensive trade deal. And you've now heard from the New Zealand Prime Minister that she wants a similar deal. What she didn't mention, by the way, is the Australian deal includes 18 to 35-year-olds, that's classified as young, free movement for 3 years, which is brilliant. And the New Zealanders are saying, can we have the same as well? So Anne-Marie Trevelyan, our Trade Minister, is here. Have you heard that? And well, good luck with the CPTPP. It's my great privilege, honor, pleasure to introduce my friend and our Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, the Right Honourable Kwasi Kwarteng, MP for Spelthorne since 2010, also a Kennedy Scholar at Harvard and a PhD from Cambridge, and a great history buff. And I tested him today. I said I was at Glasgow University today. What a university, wow. I said, Kwasi, these Scottish universities are old, you know. He said, I know exactly how old. 1450. I said, what? So I took a picture of the date of foundation. You're wrong, it was 1451. And that's why he won University Challenge, by the way, when he was at Cambridge. So here we are, great friend of business, great friend of the CBI, tireless advocate for climate change. I used to deal with Kwasi as President CBI when you were Energy Minister and the Heat Commission and everything, and you always listened. You're committed to a fully decarbonised UK energy grid by 2035. You've spearheaded the government's £1 billion industrial decarbonisation strategy. And wait for this, his most important aspect of his role, he says, is ENZI, E-N-Z-I, Enterprise, Net Zero and Innovation. Music to our ears. Kwasi, over to you.
Well, what a tall order to follow. I mean, so many fabulous speeches. And we used to call this, when I was looking for a seat, the graveyard shift, right at the end, when people want to go home and have some night's sleep. But I won't detain you long, and I just wanted to set out some very brief thoughts about where I think we are. I'd like to thank John Kerry, Tony Danker, Karen, Tracy Black, Jacinda Ardern, John Stanton, and many, many others for the fabulous speeches and the warm welcome they have hosted. And also, I have to say that many of them are people I've known for a long time, and some are recent friends. I'm delighted to say that Tony has become a very good friend, as has Karen, and they are friends in the true sense of the word. They are never afraid of telling you where you're going wrong. So I'm very, very pleased that they're here. And I was delighted, actually, to see Tony in fine form 3 days ago, where we had a reception. I was hosting a reception on behalf of the government for various dignitaries. We had presidents, we had at least 2 or 3 princes, 3 princes, I think, including our own, the Prince of Wales. We had many, many ministers. And Tony was on fine form. And he introduced himself to one slightly diminutive gentleman and said, well, I'm Tony Danker. I run the CBI. Who are you? And he said, yes, we've heard of the CBI. Oh, so what do you do? I'm the president of Ghana. Which really, I think, sums up the diversity, the range, and the real interest of this COP. So one of the first things I have to say, and I've sort of broken my rule, unfortunately, is that my first disclaimer is that there will be no jokes whatsoever in this speech. No, I was told I shouldn't make any jokes because there were too many journalists, so I won't do that. These 2 weeks in Glasgow are absolutely pivotal. What we've been doing behind the scenes, as many of you know, and what you've been doing is really asking world leaders to step up and take responsibility and work with us to help gift a healthier, cleaner, more prosperous planet to our children. We all understand the environmental case for net zero, and I was remarking that 2.5 years ago I was made energy minister, and a good friend of mine, a Conservative MP, who hasn't got into trouble, I might add, said to me very plainly, "You have an impossible task." And I said, "Why is the task impossible? No one believes that we can get to net zero if the Chinese don't sign up to net zero. And frankly, Kwasi, they are never, ever going to sign up to net zero." Well, of course, a year later, that was precisely what they did. And in my wildest imaginings, I thought I might have had something to do with that. But even politicians, I don't think, have that sense of ego. They are doing it because they believe it's right. And they understand, as we've understood, that going green and economic growth go hand in hand. Many of you will know, and you will have heard it from me many times, that here in the UK, we have reduced carbon emissions by nearly 45% since 1990, yet we've grown our economy by nearly 80%. And that sort of statistic, those sorts of figures, demonstrate very clearly that the net zero agenda, critical as it is to our future, does not mean that we have to somehow regress back into a pre-industrial poverty. We can grow our economy sensibly, and just in the way that Secretary Kerry described, through innovation, through enterprise, and through creative, what I would call creative investment. We understand in our marrow, in the marrow of our bones, that going green is good for business. And as the Prime Minister said, green is good. And it's absolutely fundamental to our message. I've been very fortunate in my life, and I've met many Prime Ministers. And as I think Tony observed, or was it Karen, that I've been an MP since 2010. And that meant that I was very fortunate enough to meet Lady Thatcher a couple of times. And I have to say that on both occasions she talked about the environmental agenda. And on the second occasion, which was towards the end, sadly, of her remarkable life, we were paraded as young MPs in front of her, and she barely could recognize us, and it was very difficult really to strike a conversation. It's very awkward if you meet a great hero or great person who stimulated so many thoughts and ideas and made a real impression on you. It's very difficult to strike up a casual conversation. And I remember one colleague of mine standing next to me was at a loss. He didn't know what to say. And he just blurted out, I don't know where it came from, "You saved our country." And we all looked rather embarrassed. And she just said, "I agree," which seemed to show remarkable confidence. But of course, what was central to that self-confidence was, of course, strong convictions. And about the climate agenda, she had incredibly passionate convictions. And I'm delighted, actually, that my old friend John Deeban is in the audience, because, of course, he was an environment minister in those days when not everybody, I might add, was as alive to this pressing problem of climate change as we are today. I believe that one of the issues that we face is that climate change very often is dressed up in distinctly anti-business language. In some cases, there are many who see the climate change agenda as a pretext for a wholesale assault on capitalism, on business. And I know that the likes of John Deeban, John Kerry, Jacinda Ardern, many, many others, the CBI, fully understand that business is a core component of reaching net zero. Too often the private sector is seen as the problem when it is in fact the solution. And the only way that we're going to save the planet is by unleashing science, innovation, new technology, but also critically investment, private enterprise which will unleash the sheer creativity of capitalism. Now, people talk about the costs of net zero. And I was often reminded, I remember when I was in America 20 years ago, there was a whole debate about the cost of education. And I was taking part, as many students were in this debate. And one professor said, well, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And I often think this about the net zero challenge. If you think the costs of net zero are too great, think about the costs of not adopting this path. Think of the appalling consequences that John Kerry outlined so eloquently about not taking action, about allowing the temperature to go to 4 degrees, and the appalling consequences we would see. I believe that our Prime Minister summed up this formula, and it really is about innovation, it's about unleashing private enterprise, but it is also, dare I say, about active government involvement. And we've seen all three, I think, in this marvellous COP, and I'm delighted to be part of it, and I pay tribute to my colleague and former boss, dare I say, Alok Sharma, who I think has done a fabulous job in COP26. And we saw actually the power of this combination of capitalism, of innovation, of active government, delivering the vaccine for COVID-19. And it is that formula, I think, that we need to turbocharge to repeat success and to tackle climate change. On our part, I'm delighted that we've delivered, and I'm very pleased that my department was at the centre of this. We've delivered on the Prime Minister's, we've helped shape the Prime Minister's 10-point plan, and of course our net zero strategy, all 700 pages of it. And for those of you who may feel that is challenging, I can assure you, I guarantee there are many, many beautiful pictures in those 700 pages. It's a very, very good and, dare I say, colourful read. We have many strategies in place. We have hydrogen, industrial decarbonisation, the North Sea transition deal, transport, heat and building strategy, and I'm delighted to see Anne-Marie Trevelyan, who was a very dynamic energy minister, and she was so good at the job she got promoted within 6 months to become the Trade Secretary. So delighted to see in her place, and we've got Greg Hands as well, another colleague with immense experience and enthusiasm. Our plans, no, rather your plans, are working. But we must also continue to make the UK a great place to do business, which encourages innovation and unleashes our country's unique entrepreneurial spirit. I'd also like to thank Rishi Sunak for the very generous spending review package he has given us. And I think that we're very much looking forward to working with his department to make sure that we deliver on net zero. Now, Karen mentioned that I'm a history buff, and I confess that I am very interested in history, and I was very struck by the Scottish Enlightenment and the legacy of free markets, thinking about very early thoughts about anthropology, about trade, and about the human condition. And I was struck also, and forgive me, I mean, I don't think any British politician these days can finish a speech without saying something about our dear neighbours in France. But I was very struck by a comment of a French Enlightenment philosopher, I can't remember who it was, who said that, and this is about the 18th century, this is not about the 21st century, it's a historical comment. And he said that France is a paradise inhabited by people who think they're in hell. And we, this is a historical comment, but actually, in a serious note, we will turn our world into a hell if we do not tackle climate change. That's a serious point I wanted to make. And reprising the theme of the Enlightenment, we have a world, a Scotland today, which is at the centre of the world's first deal to transition from the old fossil fuel economy to a greener and brighter future through our transition landmark North Sea transition deal. And at the heart of that deal is protecting jobs and signalling to business that this government backs innovation. As a government, we promise to deliver an environment that encourages innovation and growth and create the right conditions for the market to thrive. In return, all we ask is that you continue to do what you do best. You continue to innovate, you continue to build new technologies, and you continue to deliver the industries of tomorrow and to drive prices down for industry and consumers so that we can prove, and I think it's a truth very widely acknowledged, that the world, what can be good for the planet what is good for the planet can also be good for business. And as I look around this room, I see a huge appetite and enthusiasm for change and progress, and I look forward to delivering on that promise with you in the years ahead. Thank you very much.